that that wouldn't be torture, even if he's in exactly the pain he'd be in if they were trying to torture him, as long as they don't intend to do it. When you and Bybee said that, the left went crazy and said they're trying to green-light torture. But yet this is exactly the position the Obama administration has taken only about 10 days ago.
So now we have the story of the New York Times saying that we've looked at this, the DOJ's looked at this, we really don't think we ought to prosecute or investigate Bybee and Bradbury and John Yoo. But we really would encourage state bar associations where they practice to disbar them because we still want to ruin their livelihood.
Well, that certainly looks like the way it's going. No one's actually seen what this draft report says, and obviously, according to these reports, there's a lot going on behind the scenes to try to affect the outcome here. But you do have to worry that all of this blather about criminal prosecutions under circumstances where there's obviously no torture case here legally could be a big feint in order to make them look magnanimous if all they do is refer these guys for bar discipline. And yet it would destroy these guys' lives professionally.
Well, what are the odds that the bars in these states would follow through on this and issue any discipline? Are they afraid of the DOJ as well? Is everybody afraid of Washington now to the point that whatever comes out of Washington in terms of a suggestion or request is considered a demand?
I think, Rush, that that's something to be profoundly worried about. I mean, if they can manipulate the Justice Department process in this direction, the bar associations tend to be left of center to begin with.
This, if I might remind people about last week, this is specifically why you wrote the letter to the Attorney General, Eric Holder, declining the invitation to participate in some bipartisan task force going forward, right? Because, among many other reasons, one of the reasons was your opinion is going to disagree with theirs, and you don't want to be prosecuted down the road because you think they already had their process written, and in inviting you and others that may not agree with them was just a show.
Yeah, especially given that the Attorney General last week in a speech in Germany basically said that the position I hold, which is that people should be held under the laws of war in Guantanamo Bay until the end of hostilities, is a violation of the rule of law. So I'm already on notice that he thinks my opinion is a law violation. So for me to go into a meeting as a lawyer and advise the Justice Department to do something that he already has decided is against the law would imperil me just the way that these Bush administration lawyers have been basically put in the crosshairs by giving a good faith piece of advice about what they think we should do on these national security matters.
Talking with Andrew McCarthy, who is a writer, editor at National Review and National Review Online, and a former prosecutor for the U.S. Attorney's Office, Southern District of New York, which is Manhattan, and Andy led the prosecution team that convicted the blind sheikh, Omar Abdel Rahman. With people just tuning in, I wanted to know the voice that they were listening to. So, Andy, you've got some, as a lawyer and as somebody who's worked in the Justice Department, you're very much aware of the power U.S. attorneys' offices have, the Attorney General, the DOJ. You look at these people from Holder on down and the way that they're conducting business. What are your fears? I mean, this just seems to like the tip of the iceberg here with the dichotomy or the feint, if you will, with the way Demjanjuk might be treated, and yet we want to destroy the lives of American lawyers who authored the very same belief system that they're going to use to extradite Demjanjuk. What else is going on that people may not know about?
Well, my biggest fear, Rush, is that we're having a repeat of what we saw in the 1990s, particularly with the wall regulations, which were a set of internal Justice Department guidelines that prevented the national security side of the FBI's house from communicating with criminal investigators and prosecutors like me. Those regulations created an ethos, a philosophy within the government that there were things that were more important than the national security of the United States and making sure the left hand knew what the right hand was doing so that we could figure out what the threats were against us. And the feeling that it put in people throughout the government was that if you tried to do your job, if you tried to push the envelope, if you tried to protect the American people, if you tried to go the extra mile to figure out what the threats against us were, that could be professionally ruinous for you. And we saw where that led on 9/11. I don't frankly think it should have taken until 9/11 to figure it out, because we were attacked repeatedly from 1993 going forward. And I think in terms of, look, what difference does it make to somebody like me or to John Yoo or to Bybee? You can ruin one lawyer or three lawyers or however many lawyers. The important thing to those of us who care about the country is we need to have the government, as we've seen given the threat that we're up against, moving heaven and earth to figure out what the threats are against us, to figure out where the next place we might get.
Excuse me, I get the distinct impression this administration does not think of that threat as serious at all.
Well, they rhetorically suggest that it's serious, but certainly if you look at what they're doing compared to what they're saying, I have to agree that you're right.
Well, I mean, I don't know how that's the whole point with Obama. He says all these wonderful things, like we're going to have a chance to track every dollar of the stimulus bill at recovery.org. Then we learned today that the site's not going to have any worthwhile data until next year, and it's not even going to have it then. It's all a joke. While he talks about protecting the country and so forth, he's making deals with Hamas, selling Israel out. He's got John Kerry out saying to Iran, hey, look, we're going to change our policy on regime change. We'll accept you. We'll tolerate you if you guys just get rid and suspend your nuclear program. I mean, these are fools. They have to know that the Iranians are not going to accept this, even if they said they would.
Well, you make a great point, and you raised before the letter that I sent last week. Another reason that I didn't want to go to this confab on Monday was because I thought essentially it's a charade. It's sort of the difference between what they're doing and what they're saying that you've just outlined. They're contending, or they're telling people that they're studying carefully all the issues about detainees, and yet what we're finding is that they're actually releasing detainees. About 4 weeks ago, they released a guy outright named Binyam Mohammed, who was sent back to England. He's the collaborator with Jose Padilla, the guy who was the so-called dirty bomber. He was actually planning mass murder attacks in American cities. He was held as an enemy combatant for about 6 years by the Bush administration. The Obama administration has just released him to England. So for all this arguing about, should we do it in the criminal justice system or should we do it in the military system, you could argue that all day long, but I don't think anybody thought we should be releasing these guys. And yet that's what they did with him, and it's what they're planning to do with these guys, the Uyghurs, who they're actually talking about releasing into the United States.
Yeah, I mean, I've got this story today that, and I've got a couple minutes here and I have to go, but it's being reported at Politico that Harry Reid is demanding specifics on where the prisoners will go and what's going to be done with them. So this story makes it seem like Harry Reid saying to Obama, where exactly are these yahoos going to be placed? Is there some resistance in Congress to this?
I think right now there's building resistance, particularly in the House. I think Representative Hoekstra and Frank Wolf have been pushing hard on this. I expect that other people are going to be pushing hard on it as well. It's important that people know, Rush, we actually passed some law in 2005 that makes it illegal to bring aliens into the United States if they've had terrorist training or been affiliated with a terrorist organization. The Uyghurs are excludable on both grounds.
That's a Bush law. It was unjust and immoral, and we're not going to pay it. Andy, I got to run. I appreciate your calling. Thanks.
My pleasure.
Andrew McCarthy in Landaff, New Hampshire. This is Andrew. Great to have you, sir. Thank you for waiting.
Thank you. Megadittos.
Thank you, sir.
Attorney Beebe and Attorney Yu should not be prosecuted, disbarred, or reprimanded in any way. Their client, the United States of America, for her citizens, asked their lawyers to define torture. How close to the line can you get without going over and violating the law? Just like umpires, just like in football, referees define what is out of bounds, what is foul. The line is intent. The USA asked, where's the line? And they decided the line is intent. And intent matters in the law very much. The difference between negligent homicide, for example, manslaughter, and murder in the first degree is intent. Without intent, it's negligent homicide. With intent to do something else but causing a death, it may be manslaughter. And premeditation makes it capital murder. Murder in the first degree.
So what you're saying here is that the Bybee And the memo, the John Yoo and the Biden memos had no intent to torture. There was